Hey friends, a few days ago, I came across a piece of news that I found quite shocking. You might have heard about it too. A young boy from Bihar, who you could say belongs to the lower middle class or at most the middle class, ended up with a debt of 96 Indian rupees lakhs. 96 Indian rupees lakhs means almost 1 Indian rupee crore of debt fell upon him. Why? Because he was trapped in an addiction, the addiction to online gaming. Have you played this game? How much money did you lose? Right now, I am in debt of 96 Indian rupees lakhs. You are in debt of 96 Indian rupees lakhs? The same online gaming that many big celebrities and cricketers openly promote and advertise. Anyway, that boy got so deeply addicted that he started taking loans. The tuition fees that were being paid for him, the money his family had saved for his B.Tech studies, all of it, he spent on online gaming. He wasted everything. In fact, things got so bad that he even started engaging in fraudulent activities. His family was obviously distressed by all of this, so they stopped talking to him. They completely cut off all ties with him. Now, obviously, all of this was mentally very exhausting for him. That's why he even attempted suicide. This entire incident was reported by Pratik Trivedi, an anchor from News 18. It came to light when he was randomly interviewing people. But this is not just about one person. If you look at our Indian society, or, in fact, all over the world, many people today are trapped in various addictions, some big, some small. These addictions are literally ruining their lives. Now, addiction is a huge problem. It destroys families, and people even lose their lives because of it. That's why I thought, let's make a video about this on Susan Cain. When I started researching it, I came across a very interesting book recommendation on this topic. ChatGPT suggested that I read this book on addiction, saying it contains some really valuable insights. Now, to be honest, when I first heard the name of this book, it didn't seem that interesting to me. I thought it wouldn't be enjoyable. But then, when I started researching about this book, its author, and listening to his talks, I found it extremely fascinating. In fact, this book, in the realm of hungry ghosts, primarily talks about addiction, but it's not just limited to people who are addicted. In fact, this book is relevant for all of us, for you, for me, for everyone. And how can I say this with confidence? Because the author himself says so. He was once invited to speak at a premium event, where many top businessmen were present. The host who invited him asked about addiction because he himself had struggled with addiction at one point. But how is this relevant for business owners? That's when the author of this book gave a very beautiful definition of addiction. He said that the topic of addiction is actually very important for all of us, for me, for you, and for everyone in this room. If people truly understand the meaning of addiction, they will realize its significance. So, they asked him, "What do you mean?" He explained that addiction is any short-term behavior that we engage in to give ourselves temporary pleasure but ends up harming us in the long run. Listen to that again, it's very interesting. Any short-term behavior that provides short-term pleasure but causes long-term damage is considered an addiction. And if you think about it based on this definition, you'll realize that every one of us is, in some way, an addict. There are many activities we engage in that give us short-term pleasure but end up ruining our lives in the long run. That's why I thought it was important to discuss this topic in detail, because it's really necessary. Based on this definition, if I share 11 major types of addiction with you, I'm sure at least one of them will apply to you, or you must have seen someone struggling with these addictions. What is that addiction? Addiction to social media, addiction to procrastination, addiction to gaining more knowledge, addiction to eating unhealthy things, negative thinking of secondary lifestyle, alcohol or any other substance, people-pleasing, impulse spending, poor time management, sleep deprivation. All these things come under this definition. Now you also tell. How many of these problems do you have? Comment, and if you have even one of these problems, or have you seen anyone around you who is a victim of these addictions? On a larger level, today's podcast is going to be extremely important for everyone, because this book, to be honest, is truly amazing. The author of this book has spent 20 years working on addiction. There is a place called Vancouver in America, where a lot of addicted people live. This doctor has worked among them and, based on 20 years of experience, has written this book. And in this book, he has shared some truly incredible insights that you and I must learn. So, let's begin. Gabor Mate explains that in Buddhist philosophy, there is a concept called the Wheel of Life. At the very top of this wheel is heaven, where those who are truly good go. After that comes the Azura realm, where good people exist, but they are consumed by jealousy. This realm is slightly lower in level. Next comes the human realm, where there is neither extreme evil nor extreme goodness. It is a place between heaven and hell. After this comes a realm called the realm of hungry ghosts. Here, you'll find strange-looking beings, very thin bodies but with large stomachs. These are the kinds of people who are jealous of others, speak ill of them, or engage in many wrongdoings. And then comes hell, the lowest level, where people who commit the gravest sins, like murder or rape, are placed. Now, the concept of the hungry ghosts is where the author took the title of this book from. The people who live in this realm, no matter how much they eat, no matter what they consume, their hunger is never satisfied. Even though their stomachs appear huge, their hunger never ends. And this is exactly the kind of problem that many people in today's society are facing. We constantly want more, we keep consuming things, eating more, gathering more information, but we never feel satisfied. And this is creating a big problem. Do you know about 9/11 in the U.S.? It's something people still talk about and mourn to this day. Now, what does Gabor Mate say about it? He makes a controversial statement, saying that 9/11 is happening in America every 3 weeks. How? Because the number of people who died in 9/11 is the same as the number of people dying every 3 weeks due to substance overdoses, meaning drugs or other addictions. And forget about America, if we talk about India, many people are trapped in gambling. Many people lose everything due to gambling. They waste their entire savings, which ruins their family life as well. In fact, a study shows that people trapped in gambling are 15 times more likely to commit suicide compared to normal people. If we talk about betting apps, the market for these apps in India is worth Indian rupee 10,000,000 crore, and it's only growing. That means an annual market of $130 billion US, with the majority of it coming from cricket betting. Of course, there are many other addictions like tobacco and alcohol. But the one that is most relevant to us, the one that affects almost everyone, is internet and social media addiction. All these addictions, in one way or another, are seriously damaging our society. These addictions are creating serious problems, so what should we do about them? Well, in today's podcast, we will break it down into 5 parts to understand how to deal with addiction. If you are struggling with any of the addictions I've mentioned so far, or if you know someone who is suffering from them, this will be important for you. If someone's family is facing problems due to addiction, make sure to share this video with them, and be sure to watch it till the end. You'll get the complete essence of addiction. In this book, Gabor Mate has explained everything that you need to understand about addiction. Alright, I have divided this podcast into 5 parts. The first part is the addiction culture, because addiction has now become a part of our culture itself. Gabor Mate has shared many interesting insights about culture and addiction. After that, in the next part, we will discuss understanding addiction, because if we want to eliminate something, we first need to understand it. Understanding a problem is half the solution. Then comes the root causes of addiction. What exactly leads people to addiction? Gabor has shared some very fascinating insights on this, things you might have never heard before. Then comes treatment approach. Once we understand all these things, how can we treat addiction? We will discuss the solutions that Gabor Mate suggests. And finally, the last part, path to healing. How can we heal in a holistic way? How can a person heal? You, me, or anyone struggling with addiction. Any type of addiction, so make sure to watch this video till the end. You will learn all these things in this entire podcast, which will be very important for you, your family, and society as a whole. Alright, let's start with the addiction culture. This word culture, if seen from a scientific perspective, actually comes from the field of biology. You could say that, in a petri dish, microorganisms like fungi and bacterial cells are often grown. When these organisms are placed in a controlled environment and allowed to grow or reproduce, it is called culture. But if the microorganisms or any living beings in that petri dish start dying or falling sick, then it is called a toxic culture. Gabor Mate says that the society we are living in today has become a highly toxic culture. We are living in a culture that is totally out of sync with the fundamental needs of humans required to live a good life. Because of this, mental illnesses are increasing, anxiety is rising, and depression is becoming more common. Many problems in people's lives are growing due to this. Gabor Mate also shared his own example, explaining how his childhood was extremely traumatic. This happened during the Nazi era, when his mother had to send him away to keep him safe. As you might already know, since he was Jewish, people were being killed, and his family members were also being murdered. So, to protect him, his mother sent him away. But because he was just a child, he explained that children have a certain trait: they are naturally very selfish. They believe that whatever is happening is because of them. So, if their parents or mother are stressed, the child will think, it's because of me. If they are happy, the child will feel, it's because of me. So, when Gabor's mother sent him away, the reason was to keep him safe. But Gabor started feeling that his mother didn't need him. And because this need wasn't fulfilled, what happened? To fulfill this need, Gabor chose a career path where everyone needed him. He became a doctor. Similarly, he says that sex workers, why do they sometimes end up in sex work? Because they think that only in this way people will need me. I will sell my body and only then people will feel the need for me, otherwise they will not feel the need, which is absolutely not true. In fact, some surprising studies also tell about the addiction which is spread in the society. They say that if you believe, for example, if research is done, if we take 1,000 addicts, then there are 1,000 such addicts who consume heroin, 1,000 who consume smoking and 1,000 who drink alcohol. And this thing should be seen in 1,000 out of 1,000. Which group out of the 3 groups will be the healthiest after 10 years? Then you know which group will be the healthiest. That is the group which does heroin. But if you look in the society, then who will get the most punishment? The one who does heroin. And this thing is very understandable in the society nowadays. Here we are being made to do such things which are actually very harmful. If you look at it, sugar is also deeply embedded in our culture. Eating sugar. And all these things are so common. But sugar consumption is one of the leading causes of death, not just in India, but across the world. Yet, a culture has been created where we keep consuming these things repeatedly, and it has become so easy for us to do so. Gabor says that we now need to change our outlook when it comes to addiction. For example, Gabor gives another very interesting example. If you ask me to imagine an addict, who comes to your mind? Usually, you might picture someone who does drugs, consumes some kind of substance, is drinking, eating something, and is completely intoxicated and out of control, right? But he says that this is not necessarily true. Addicts can also be people who are highly successful in life. In fact, their success is often driven by their addiction. For example, Gabor Mate gives the example of Napoleon Hill. He says that as a society, we consider Napoleon a great hero. He traveled to so many places, fought countless wars, conquered vast lands, and is portrayed as a hero. But to be honest, Napoleon was an addict. He was addicted to power and conquest. That hunger never truly goes away. As Gabor Mate explains in his book In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts, many people keep chasing success. They run after it so much that even when they achieve success, their hunger is never satisfied. Then they chase even more success, wanting more money, more numbers, more views, but it's never enough. And this race never truly ends. In fact, even in our religion, it is said that the hunger for money is something that not even the soil of the grave can satisfy, meaning this hunger never ends. And this is exactly what we see in addiction. But this same addiction comes in different forms. So, Gabor raises a very important point, that addiction. We shouldn't think narrowly that addiction only means a person consuming substances. No, a person who is overworking, or a Napoleon, who kept waging war after war, causing the loss of millions of lives, should not just be seen as a hero. Instead, we should consider that maybe he was an addict too. Maybe he also had some psychological problem, which is why he could never feel satisfied, leading to so many wars and the loss of countless lives. And Gabor even mentioned this in front of businessmen, saying that power is a very interesting thing. Many of us chase power, and sometimes, people become so obsessed with it that their actions lead to wars and the deaths of many people. On the other hand, this is not to sympathize with them, but to highlight a reality. Many times, the addicts we traditionally consider as addicts, those addicted to substances, are primarily harming themselves. However, there are also many addicts in the world who become so obsessed with success, money, and power that their addiction starts causing great harm to society. They start harming themselves and others significantly, and I found this point very interesting. Gabor also shared a fascinating insight about trauma. He explained that trauma can be of two types. One type of trauma occurs when something bad happens to us in life, and that experience becomes our trauma. But sometimes, there is another type of trauma as well. For example, imagine a businessman who suffers a huge loss. He starts a business, but his friends betray him and take away a lot of his money. This experience becomes his trauma, a negative trauma that arises from a negative experience. However, there is also a second type of trauma, which is known as the trauma of lack of positive experiences. Sometimes, people don't necessarily experience something bad in life, but they also don't experience something good. For example, someone may have wanted to become a millionaire, but they never achieve it. This unfulfilled desire can also create trauma in their mind. Gabor Mate emphasizes that understanding this as a norm in our culture is very important. He also makes a crucial point that the word addict itself should actually be replaced with a different term. The term addict should be replaced with the phrase, a person who has suffered so much pain that they didn't know how to escape except through their behavior. Gabor Mate says that when we replace the word addict with this understanding, we will be able to see addicts with more compassion and truly understand them. But in society, addicts are often viewed so negatively, almost like villains. This harsh judgment creates more problems rather than solving them. The problem is that when someone is an addict, people usually just put them in jail. Now, what happens because of this? The reasons that led to their addiction, whether it's loneliness, trauma, or something else, often intensify in jail instead of getting better. There was an interview where Gabor Mate spoke with someone about this issue. He also said, "You can't punish pain out of people. You can't make someone's pain disappear by punishing them. If you really want to help someone overcome their pain, you first need to understand them. Only when we understand them can we guide them toward a solution with compassion." But our culture is designed in such a way that we try to fix addicts by punishing them, which actually doesn't help them at all. And it pushes them further in a direction that makes their life even worse, causing more suffering for both themselves and others. So, I think these cultural points are really important to understand. Now, let's move on to understanding addiction. Before we can end addiction, we first need to understand it. Where did the word addiction actually come from? The word addictive actually comes from a Latin word called addicts or addictus. Basically, it was used for a person who had fallen into debt but was unable to repay it. As a result, that person would be enslaved, and once they became a slave, they were referred to as addicts. And this very concept of slavery is where the word addict originates. From addictus, it refers to situations where people become slaves to a behavior or a substance. In ancient times, an addictus was controlled by another person. Similarly, in today's world, certain behaviors dictate and control people's lives. And these addictions often take forms that. There's an example related to this earlier. Addicted people used to walk around with chains attached to them. Sometimes, they would even forget to take them off and would continue walking with the chains on. Similarly, Gabor says that nowadays, many people are also carrying the burden of their addictions everywhere they go. The addiction behavior keeps going with them, and they don't even realize it. They just keep moving with that burden. After this, the author gives another very interesting example. For instance, imagine a child who notices that something is wrong at home. Maybe his parents are fighting, or something is happening. Now, what options does the child have? Usually, every person operates in fight or flight mode. For example, if a tiger appears in front of us, we usually have two options: either fight if we have the strength, or flee, take flight mode, if we don't. But sometimes, people, using the example of a child, Gabor explained that when young children get stuck in such situations, where fights are happening around them, the first option is fight, but they cannot fight with their parents. The second option is flight, but they cannot leave home either. So, in such cases, what happens is that children develop attention deficiency. What do th?